need. There is a great need to address the fact that I am human. I have feelings. I don't ever want to get so offended that I lose touch with my own feelings, my own, experience on an emotional level. This is an experiential learning. It's a hands-on, it's a hearts-on. And when I hear people talk about being so balanced that they don't even cry at a funeral or something, or they wouldn't expect to have to, because the joy of okay, I mean, if that's someday I'm gonna be there, that's one thing. However, I don't aspire to that, because I always want to be connected to my feelings very deeply of, connecting with others. It's a matter of not being attached to, any feeling of disappointment or sadness or whatever, that it's had to come to its natural conclusion. But that's a grieving process, when we're talking about, there are some people that seem to kind of categorize it as that you'll get to where there's no grieving process anymore. I'm not sure that I'm sold on that there's no grieving process. Of course there's a grieving process, if we're going to stay, human about stuff, and if we're so transcended that we no longer feel any of that, then are we really useful to the planet? Because we've kind of taken ourselves into a whole realm where 1818 that most people aren't going to identify with, so how much of a spiritual teacher or way shower could we possibly be if we're not really identifying in ways, I'm already talking about stuff that a lot of human beings don't understand and can't identify with to begin with, but then I'm going to start talking about no longer getting angry, no longer getting sad, no longer feeling, outrage at injustice or taking a stance on anything because I'm just far too balanced. And we definitely need folks, to be in very balanced positions and, not succumbing to their emotions of things. However, to just say that I'm divorcing myself of the experience that, I say I have a loving relationship with someone that I've been married to for 40 or 50 years and they pass away, I'm really challenged to believe, that that's a good thing to say out loud. And yet I've heard, a spiritual teacher say that someone, I love that person dearly, and yet I'm rejoicing, he transitioned. Like, that just doesn't sit in my head and my heart well. That I understand the concept. However, we're very comfort seeking creatures, that the comfort of daily seeing a person or regularly, or that's our routine, that alone is enough to give pause to the grieving process of, I don't have that anymore, I'm going to have to adapt. There's growing pains to adaptation. No matter how flexible we are, no matter how evolutionary we are, there are still growing pains to the growth. There's still growing pains to the evolutionary process itself. There's still the adaptation too. We don't suddenly, have our left arm chopped off in an industrial accident and just go, cool, because I've got a new arm now, a prosthetic. There's a process to that, and we can certainly aid that process by understanding our spiritual function and our oneness and our balance better. However, I'm not sure that it's a good idea to teach people that that it's a matter of bypassing it and that you're just going to get to the point where it's no longer relevant. It's probably not going to be relevant anymore way further into this evolutionary process for the planet as a whole. Most people are going to need to really understand that you have emotions and that, go ahead and start expressing them, and let's feel the full range of them instead of just getting stuck in the rage part, or the victimization part, and then move through to understand that there's a way to move out of that victimization part and grieve the loss of whatever that was, and then start balancing out and leveling out to deal with the trauma. Let's get all that dealt with so we're not continuing to react out of that place. And then we'll start talking about the fresh assault on our senses of, hey, I just lost my spouse at 40 years or 50 years. That's a whole process that when we're teaching people that, or we're saying and setting as the example that, well, that person transitioned and I'm joyous that they're, here, there, whatever. Okay, that's not where most people in their lifetime, or even a couple maybe, I don't know what the timeline exactly is, but I don't believe in 100 years you're going to find people still, even in 100 years from now, that are going to be there with their consciousness, as fast-paced as it is, and as fast-moving as it is. The consciousness is ascending at rapid pace now, or it's being, people are being given the opportunity to do that. However, we have a lot of people that are way slow over here, still worrying, about the Barney skills and haven't gotten that down correctly. That's pretty advanced. Ask someone, unless you are, the 8-year-old Einstein that's graduating with your physics degree from Harvard, your master's and your PhD and stuff. That's not a majority of us, Earthwalkers. That's just not. That's a very select crowd. And when we have those select crowds trying to set even the spiritual standard of that's where we're expected to go, okay, well, I'm not sure that all humans are expected to go there anyway on a spiritual level. Maybe someday. However, putting it out there that that's the gold standard for spirituality is to never have, what is normal, natural human response. The normal, natural human response isn't rage and, all of that. That isn't normal. That's been made normal. It's been culled into being normal. We're a very violent and atrocious society. However, that's not the baseline of human beingness. That's become the normal. However, our baseline normal isn't that. We're just used to that. That's what's become our baseline of understanding. And why we're at war with ourselves is that we already know inside that doesn't feel good. We're just finding ways to adapt to that not feeling good rather than changing that which doesn't feel good. Rather than adapt to the pain, fuck the pain, Let's figure out what's causing the pain and balance that out. But we're not really teaching people that. We're teaching them that the imbalance needs to be made balanced. If you don't really get to the core of what's imbalanced, we're just going to shift the imbalance elsewhere. We'll be doing yoga and, meditating and doing some stuff and still saying sideways things out of, one side of our mouth or the other, and talking smack that doesn't make sense and isn't balanced because we're not really dealing with the core issue. And we're not really crying or allowing ourselves to cry or be angry in an appropriate way. We're getting stuck in the rage, the hostility, and that I'm justified in saying this because, and it moves into stupid areas where we start judging other people and squirting and exerting our rage elsewhere, or our power trip, or our lack of understanding that we were victimized and we felt victimized and we felt like we had no control. So now we're going to go out and control someone else. Anybody that's out there spouting a whole bunch of stuff related to, trying to push out the transgender and the, drag shows and gender problems and race problems, culture problems, anybody that's out there, with their gun wars and stuff, there's not a one of them that could convince me that they don't have an issue with fear and being overpowered and the need to overpower first before anybody else gets to jump on them. That's a soul crisis in here. That's not an out here thing. It has nothing to do with anybody's color, their race, their gender, how they do their life, etc. It has nothing to do with that. That has to do with the person inside their own selves. That why are you looking out there trying to control what kind of book somebody reads? What are you afraid of? Well, the black people. Well, they're this. Well, you're doing. That's all, every bit of it. There's not one word that could come out that will justify that kind of action out here, that stuff that turn that back in here and figure out what that fear is about. And until we can recognize that we even have fear, you're not going to get people to the point that they're willing to, allow death to be a joyous occasion. They turn that into, well, I'm glad they're not suffering anymore. And I shouldn't either, because I should be, thrilled to death that preacher so-and-so or spiritualizing, minister here said this and blah, 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 blah. That's a lot. That's a whole lot, especially when emotionally arrested people who are, 70, 80 years old, that they're emotionally arrested at, 3 or 4, they don't have the emotional maturity to be dealing with that, and they kind of process their stuff, they kind of go there, they also kind of spiritualize things and pretend like that's not really a grievous situation, or that there's no need to get mad anymore. And the one of the spiritualists that I think of that comes to mind most frequently is channeling an entity, and which I have kind of a problem with right off the top, is channel information and then own that shit. If you're going to say it out of your mouth, don't blame that on an entity, because you've already lost most of the population with channeling. No, I don't believe that. So I channel information all the time. Where do we think we get it? We're channeling it either from our own limited brain box of matrix stuff, or we're channeling from higher knowledge. It's all channeled, it's all piping in from somewhere. It's just a matter of how far outside the matrix we're getting our information. But this person channels an entity that she claims, and that we laugh and we find humor at you humans who are blah 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 blah, as if you are a human. And when we separate ourselves out and talk about our channeling experience, even when I'm channeling or talking to, communicating on the phone on a channel of dialogue with a tree, a rock, or whatever, or an ascended master, even then, I still have to own my part of the conversation, what I'm hearing, and have that stuff verified. And the way that it's verified is in my own heart and in my own soul, of feeling the balance and the, oh, okay, yes. And I still need to own that when it comes out of my mouth, because you lose the population of people that just won't even go there. That this woman says she's talking to a tree, and then I'm going to make it a third-party experience. Well, the tree says blah 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 blah, and be disparaging of the human experience, like I'm not one, like I suddenly turned into a tree because I was channeling what the tree's thoughts were, or the tree's energy, and then anthropomorphize it. I mean, like, that's going through too many layers that humans are not evolved enough to be playing to even understand that the tree has its own energy and has its own vibration that we can feel and identify with. Then you're asking a whole lot to then turn it into some humanized experience that's got a stank on it with, we find it amusing that you humans, that's got a very stanky, judgy tone to it. That no, humans are down here bumbling around. We don't need any more spiritualists, pastors, preachers, presidents, politicians, left, right, anywhere, anyone, to put it into the context that we're down here screwing it up, and some, higher knowledge knows how to do it. I know what it is because I'm bringing it in here, and all you have to do is this. How about bring it in as in, here's what comes to mind for me is this, and allow people to not get hung up in missing the entire message, which could be quite helpful. However, if they're turned off in the first 10 seconds because it got combative with you humans, that's coming out of a human mouth. What are you saying? What? That makes it a lot more challenging to take seriously. And believe me, there's a whole lot of knowledge that's well above human comprehension as baseline humans. We do have to open ourselves to that and understand that energy sources and channeling that stuff does take us out of the human brain box. It does, and it does. It absolutely does. However, the average human knows how to do that already. Channeling, it's just, are you channeling your own, looped information from your own mind and your own system that you're subscribing to, all of your programming? Or are you channeling higher system updates that, could come from a more universal app store? Have you updated your device at all? Are you still running on system updates from your childhood, or from your understanding that's, primitive? And, to say, I'm channeling, so-and-so from outer space, they have it all. It could be very helpful, might be, and is some of it, but not if we've turned off majority of the population just with how we're presenting the information, because the ego gets involved with, well, humans. No, I like the bridge of understanding when I'm talking to natural world and my guides and stuff, that this has to be understood as a human, because you are human. We're not. However, you are, and we need to help you find a way to put this into the human context so that you can wrap your mind around it, because your mind is what's going to need to digest all of this. You know, I can take in a whole lot of information from the cosmos and the ethers and natural world. I can take a lot of that in as light codes, sound codes, vibrational updates and downloads and things. I can take those all in, but they still have to be assimilated and processed into my body and my understanding somehow. That which doesn't have to be consciously understood, it just assimilates and goes where it needs to, and I'm cool with that. However, those concepts that need to be understood out here in the logic, the frontal lobe, and the storytelling, and the, you know, the metaphysical understandings and things, that's what helps to build the bridge of understanding for other people to possibly get to their bridges of understanding. So when we take it out of that bridge entirely of, well, I've just made myself superior by talking about channeling an entity that thinks we're stupid down here because we're beating each other up and we're doing that. Me as my person, I happen to think it's stupid, yes, that we are beating each other up. However, you know, assigning that same level of you know, human stuff to entities with higher knowledge wouldn't be doing human stuff. That's not what I ever get from any of the ascended masters and all of that I work with. Not ever. I get, as a human being, this is, you know, how you're feeling it, experiencing, etc., and don't ever lose sight of that. Always keep striving to be, you know, more ascended than you have been anywhere, in any context, any understanding, anything. Anywhere where there's a glitch, let's move through that and figure out what it is, if that's necessary, or just let it go if it's not, and keep moving towards the higher thought, the higher thought, the higher thought. And that will move us into those places of ascended mastery. However, it doesn't happen by browbeating at any level, you know, where humans are. I don't like the behaviors that I see, and I think they're ignorant and stupid, some of them, but that's my human. And I can't attribute that to an ascended master who's telling me that junk, you know, or a tree or a mountain or, you know, animal world or natural world. That's not fair. That's assigning them with stuff that, no, that's a human game, not us. We don't play that. And making it personal, and then assigning it out to outer space and concepts where channeling and understanding cosmic energy is going to be less palatable if people feel like the same dumb paradigm that raised them and told them on some level, and is society still telling them on some level, is going to be also taken out into outer space where ascended masters are also going to go. I don't believe Jesus was chastising the people in the temple when he got angry, or he cursed the fig bush, because the fig bush had a natural responsibility as the fig bush to produce. You know, why aren't you producing? And you're cursed, as in, you know, you weren't doing your job. You're going to need to understand how to get into the production of what you naturally know to do. You're being obstinate. You know, if we're going to really anthropomorphize that parable and understand it as humans, you're not doing what you naturally know to do. You're going against what is your natural understanding of propagating your own self and producing fruit. Therefore, you are cursed by your own lack of willingness to produce, okay? If we take it out of the context of Jesus, you know, actually cursing, maybe he was stating the obvious of, you're cursed because you're allowing yourself to not be fruitful. You're allowing yourself to not be a producing fig tree, which is your natural state of being. You are therefore cursed. I'm observing this rather than placing a curse on you. Maybe that's a good interpretation. You know, and going into the temple, he didn't curse those people and say, you fuckers, you know, how dare you, blah, 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 that you are in a wrong understanding of where you are, what you're doing. No, you may not, you may get out of here. However, he didn't slay those people and call them dirty, nasty, you know, blah, 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 that we know of. I mean, we can interpret it a million ways. He experienced his humanity and took care of business with, you're incorrect. You could also say that he cursed them by throwing them out and making them aware of their blindness, that they would, if they wanted to, understand their wrongdoing, they would feel that disparity in their heart and would therefore be cursed with the guilt, the shame. If you really wanted to go deep with the story, I don't believe we have any, accounting of how they experienced that, other than he tossed around tables and said, no, you're in a wrong equation. You're setting up a bad, wrong equation right here with you're doing this activity here. This is sacred. You're doing stuff that's imbalanced. Take that stuff out. Now, whether or not he, discussed or made a commentary on what the nature of their behavior was, that you're pimping and prostituting and that's already bad, I don't know. He definitely did put it in the context of you're in a holy place doing unholy stuff. That shit doesn't work. You gotta go now. So it's really much more fundamental and way more deep. It's the polar opposites all at the same time. I used to kind of wonder what Wayne Dyer meant when, he said everything is everything all the time. It's both things at once. The North Pole and the South Pole don't exist separate from one another. You can't just put one pole in a bowl. It doesn't happen, and things are all relative to one another. Relativity matters on many levels. The principles of relativity, you wouldn't know where you are without a reference point of either where you've been or where you want to go, or where somebody else is in relationship to you. It's a comparative study all the time, and yet if we dig too deep or stay too long in the comparative study, then we're lost in, making any move whatsoever. We're just busy. If we get imbalanced anywhere, it's really always about the balance. And I guess that's what distresses me sometimes when I hear spiritualists, particularly, that you're talking about channeling energy and then assigning some very imbalanced stuff to it, that brings an element of shame or judgment, or of, out here in outer space, as ascended masters out here, us ETs, we know more, and you humans, and yet it's a human that's saying that. I don't ever want to lose sight of the fact that I am a human. No matter how ascended my consciousness may be, it's still piping through a human being, and no matter how many upgrades and, software updates of my brain box and my software that, I have running my mind and all of that, no matter how many updates I get and how ascended I can get that understanding, that consciousness, I'm still going to be a human being, from the duration of my life. That is the storyline of being on Earth, is that you come in the avatar of a human, and animals come in the avatars of being animals, and trees come in as trees. I mean, however we're showing up, whatever we're wearing is our physicality. That's what we come in as. And to pretend like that one day we're going to ascend so far that we'll be transcending the whole human element, the human understanding, and the software packaging of today, one day it will be that way. However, we're a long ways away from that when you have people that are going to bristle at even understanding that, what Jesus was about, or any of the other ascended masters that have already been here. Please don't start assigning stuff to outer space that's got an attitude. That's counterintuitive and counterproductive. So I believe that's enough of that, because that's a whole lot of information, and that's way deep. And honestly, I'm kind of bored with it. I need to go play human, as in detach from the spiritual side of myself enough, a little bit more, to, let this percolate and let all the little, bean collectors and dot collectors go take that, assimilate all of that download right now that is very spiritual. It's coming from some very, top brass. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful for it. And I'm still a human being that needs to all, go where it goes, and interact with, deal with, and counterbalance all of the negative programming that I already received, that I've been, dumping off by the droves. It still has to continue to upgrade and delete out, cancel out, and jettison anything that's no longer working. If that software update, is taking care of bugs of this kind over here, then that all needs to work out. And I don't have to be conscious of most of it. The part I was just conscious of was enough to keep my, little ethers human interaction busy for a while I don't know, go order some groceries and do something to help my my human avatar, be here in the 3D, best supported by my spirituality and my team. So I'm going to go do that. But thank you so much to the Ascended Masters and the entities that channel with me, through me, that communicate, that we have that communication, and that it's not just a set amount of time, that I'm only doing this during this state of being, that no, I'm constantly channeling something. It's just a matter that I no longer care to just channel any old anything. No more channeling from the bad programming, the negative programming, and all the terrible self-talk that it brings, and the badgering and bullshit. None of that anymore, thanks. And when that does come up, let's channel with the higher authority, communicate with that to help me jettison that, and never lose sight that there's always someone or something to be channeling with, and to keep that very much in mind, that I can always be connecting to my higher self at a minimum, and connecting to any other energy source that's a higher vibration. That's the minimum standard. Is it has to be a higher vibration. It can't be something that's lower than me. Shit, I can work in my own mind and have that. I don't need that. That's freebie right here. And why would I channel something that's a lower entity outside of me? Good God, that's what possession looks like, and you see it all over the place. Or the idea, the concept of possession. So it's a matter of, now it's just a conscious desire to, okay, let's slow down the conversation. Just keep an open mic, that, hey, do I need some help? Do I need to understand anything else? Keep the line open, the communication open. However, there's no conversation that's necessary. It doesn't have to be that I just turn off the whole pipeline altogether. Hell no, I don't ever want to do that. Never again. That when I am doing that, I'm gently reminded of how to bring yourself back there, Kate. Don't go away. Just keep the line open and the conversation off for the moment, of let's go listen to some, MASH or a movie or something else to distract and keep the mind distracted, color for a little while or something, so that all that information can assimilate and go exactly where it needs to go, as it's making the updates and changes in my physical body and my mind and my understanding, and in that programming that's coming in and that which is going, and allow that transition to happen smoothly without a whole lot of infighting in my own head about, I should be doing that. No, I'm going to be doing what I'm doing. And thank you so much, Spirit. 4422 just passed. Thank you so much, Spirit. Thank you very much for bringing me to a brand new understanding. I never quite know when I start these things what we're going to talk about, or how it's going, or where it's going. And I'm always so beautifully surprised and delighted whenever I listen back and pick up new information, because I'm channeling stuff right now, that isn't me being conscious of it as much as it is just allowing it to come and have that conversation that I don't predictably understand and know what somebody's going to say on the phone as a human being. I don't know what they're going to say to me. I have to wait for that, oh, okay, and then the conversation goes. Those are the kinds of comms I like to have with my teams, and the channeling experience. So it's good, and I'm pleasantly surprised most of the time, unless I'm just having a wine session, and channeling the garbage out. But I'm always pleasantly surprised whenever I'm really getting those downloads of information and helping me to assimilate where I'm going next with this. That, okay, we seem to have hit a rough spot, let's do this. Or we seem to have hit a little bit of a glitch, let's do this. If it wasn't some sort of a blockage or a little bit of a I wouldn't be having the in the first place. Those are good things, and the fact that they clear out is even better. So thank you so much, teams, and thank you so much, Spirit. Thank you so much to all of the realms and higher knowledge and ascended masters that work with me to help me understand myself and them. Thank you so much for all that you do to support Gaia and my work here to support her and the animal kingdom, the natural world, and human beings too, in any way that I can. It feels really good to be of service to the earth at a minimum, just by cleaning up my own ignoramus stuff and getting out of my own way to allow that kind of healing to happen. Because if I'm grumpy, then, that just complicates matters and clogs up in one more place. And one person getting better will ripple out and help others be inspired to do so also at whatever level they can and are willing. So I'm willing to do my part. And thank you so much for showing me how to do that and to live from my heart more freely. Thank you, Spirit. Mwah. 4646.